Rappers being in video games has a pretty interesting history. Dating all the way back to 1994, Shaq aka Shaquille O'Neal had his very own 2D fighting game. It was available on the Sega Genesis and the Super NES, and if you didn't know by now while we're talking about Shaq, he has 4 studio albums that he put out during his NBA career. And honestly, he was a solid rapper, so technically that makes him the first rapper with a video game. But according to the reviews, Shaq Fu was one of the worst games for those platforms. So Shaq definitely did the side mission, even though it was a
mission failed. We'll get 'em next time.
Not too long after that, Wu-Tang had their own game on the PlayStation 1. Wu-Tang Shaolin Style was released in 1999, and it was another fighting game. As you can tell by now, fighting games were really popular during this time. Street Fighter, Fatal Fury, and Mortal Kombat were running the early 90s, so naturally people are going to try to recreate that success with their own game. Wu-Tang's game actually had their music in it, and they were all playable characters. It was an overall better game than Shaq Fu by far, and the soundtrack definitely made it feel like an actual hip-hop game. Fast forward to 2003 and you have Def Jam Vendetta. We all know how legendary the first 2 Def Jam games are, but it looks like Tony Yayo doesn't seem to think so.
Like, you've seen other video games where rappers is fighting rappers and stuff like that. That game was kind of corny. I played that game before. I forgot the name of it, but I didn't really like it too much.
Now whether he believes that or not, I don't know. It could just be a marketing tactic, but 50 Cent Bulletproof did come in flaming hot in 2005. It was a third-person shooter featuring the likes of course, 50 Cent, Tony Yayo, Young Buck, Lloyd Banks, Eminem, and Dr. Dre. At the time, they were pretty much all at peak stardom, so that alone played a big part in its success. But the real question is, was the game actually good?
I feel like it's going to be the most exciting video game this year, probably for the next few years, before they find something better than this.
2005 was the year of God of War 1, Resident Evil 4, The Warriors, and many more. It's safe to say that 50 Cent Bulletproof wasn't the greatest thing that the industry saw at that time, but it did have a lot of personality and it was authentic. Funnily enough, it was developed by a Scottish development team called Genuine Games. They worked with 50 to make sure this project fit their image while still being a video game at the same time. It's like a combination of 50 Cent's real life with movie-like storytelling and action. It starts off with 50 getting a phone call from his old friend K-Dog. He needs 50's help with a situation he got himself into in the streets. So 50 suits up with his bulletproof vest and all, chain swinging everything, and gets the G-Unit Avengers team ready. Lloyd Banks, Young Buck, and Tony Yayo all get a pretty dope intro at the start of this game. They pull up to K-Dog's location in Queens and they see him getting choked out. That man getting choked out. They kill waves on top of waves of masked men trying to save K-Dog. But then in a solo rooftop battle, 50 Cent gets flanked and shot 9 times. G-Unit eventually found him on the rooftop and brought him to a hood doctor. The doctor patched him up and gave him pills to treat his pain, and a few weeks later you're back on your feet looking for revenge for not only who shot you, but also who took K-Dog. It isn't a super long storyline, but it comes with a lot of plot twists and interesting characters. Eminem plays a corrupted detective named McVicker that supplies you, that's kind of, I don't know how I feel about that name, McVicker.
You don't find that suspicious?
But yeah, he supplies you with the confidential information that you need for who you're looking for, but it's for a small fee every single time. You have to pay up to get this information. Dr. Dre, he plays a gun salesman named Grizz that supplies you with all the weapons you need and even comes to your rescue during the story. And those are just some of the characters, as I don't want to spoil too much if you haven't played this game before, but trust me, it gets really interesting. A lot of stuff about drug trafficking, criminal organizations, police activity, murder mysteries. The list goes on and on for this story, and I really didn't expect it to be this good. It had my attention for sure, but some of the bosses you fight along the way could have definitely been more fleshed out. They all served a purpose though at the end of the day in one way or another, and that actually leads me straight into the gameplay. The game has a level-based story where you travel to different levels using the subway. The problem with these levels is that there are very few checkpoints throughout them, whether it's from fall damage or the enemy AI whooping your ass. It is pretty easy to die in this game. The enemies be having like 100% accuracy. They're super aggressive most of the time until you start shooting back at them, that is. The gunplay kind of feels clunky because of how the aiming is and how fast the enemies be moving around, running around, and using cover. So the AI was kind of advanced in this game for 2005. You can get behind cover too, but it's really only viable when it's like the movable cover, like a dumpster or something like that, which is cool. Even the enemies can use the movable cover, which is crazy. It just sucks that the AI has crackhead-like behavior.
Stay off the weed.
The controls were also pretty wacky for this game. You have to hit L1 to crouch, R2 to switch between your weapons, and then you tap L2 to heal. It was just kind of confusing, especially coming back to an older game like this. The camera was another huge problem because of how zoomed in it was. It made it hard to see any of the enemies and find out where you're supposed to go at times. There's no minimap in the game either, so you can get lost very quickly. Overall, there is little to no indication of what you're supposed to be doing sometimes. And the only way to know the current objective too is by pausing the game and looking at your phone, which slows down the gameplay on top of that. And even then, when you pause the game and look at your phone to see the objective, sometimes that doesn't give a good enough explanation of what you're supposed to be doing. On the flip side, your phone does have some cool features. You can receive messages and phone calls that help you with your current mission. You can listen to music and watch music videos from your phone. And you also have a contact list where you can call your friends and see what they're up to.
Yeah, it's the talk of New York, and right now I'm either fucking your bitch, getting some money, or doing something better to do with my time, but I'm tied up. Leave it.
Throughout the gameplay, you can loot dead bodies to find money, ammo, and even armor. They also scatter all that stuff around the level. All you gotta do is just look around and you can find it. But overall, the money can be used to buy vitamin water from Doc Friday, which increases your max health by 10% every time. That's probably the best upgrade you can get. You can also refill your health bar with med kits, and you can buy painkillers, which are healables you use during the level if you get low on health. On top of that, the money can be used to buy guns from Grizz. One thing I like about buying guns is that Grizz will give you a brief rundown of every weapon when you hover over it. And then the last gameplay related purchase you can make is counter kills. A character you'll meet early on in the story will allow you to buy counter kills from him. It's basically like a finishing move or a takedown you can do if an enemy gets too close. But these counter kills are really brutal. You'll see a lot of blood and gore when you do these, and it almost kind of reminds me of Manhunt with how crazy these can get. Same goes for the special animations that happen when you get a headshot or if you do like a stealth kill. Oh yeah, and that reminds me, since we just said something about stealth, there is a section in this game where you get rewarded if you play stealthy. But the problem is, it's almost impossible to do that because there's no mini-map and the camera is super zoomed in, and those are the two worst combinations for any type of stealth section. But luckily, it wasn't a big deal if you failed the stealth objective because it didn't, qualify anything for the mission. But I'd rather spend time shooting anyway because the weapon selection is pretty solid for this game. You can dual wield weapons as long as they're considered like small. So that means you can have a pistol in one hand and an SMG in the other, which is cool. You can even grab enemies and use them as a human meat shield, like on some Gears of War type stuff. You can throw them, execute them, or even interrogate them if you wanted to.
Okay, I work for an agency. Higher per hit. You must have done some serious shit for us to be here, alright? That's all I got.
The soundtrack is of course going to be fire without a doubt. It's a game about 50 Cent, so that was expected. But you can buy music and videos from this one guy, because there's like a hub world with your like apartment. The dude that sells you healables and Grizz, all that stuff. You go there every time you finish a mission. So there's a guy that sells music and videos out the back of his car, which is kind of accurate to how it was back then. Like, you remember getting those bootleg DVDs and movies and stuff from whatever. But the voice acting across the board is also pretty funny and entertaining. You'll hear repeated or like glitched voice lines every once in a while, but for the most part, it's hilarious.
Shit, I'm hit, nigga. You gonna die for that.
Some other things I thought I would mention is the fact that this game has cheat codes. There weren't a lot, but they have the ones that matter. Cheats to unlock whatever you want from weapons, music, or even the counter kills. But most importantly, they have an unlimited health cheat code. This makes the game way more enjoyable on a second playthrough, mainly because you don't have to worry about crazy AI or the fall damage that you can easily take. But I also forgot to mention that you can replay any of the levels that you want by going to the subway station and traveling back to the mission area again. They even have an arcade mode, which lets you play as pretty much any character from the game. I don't know if I just hit my mic, but any character on the game on whatever level you want. And it just throws you in there with a bunch of enemies until you die or the time runs out. So when it comes down to it, I would recommend you play this game if you haven't already, or if you have, replay it if you get a chance. This isn't the best game ever, but it's definitely worth experiencing. It's just one of those PS2 games that you just have to bring up, especially if you are a fan of hip hop. I'm surprised there really hasn't been more notable rap related games recently. But then again, I don't know if any of the new artists could pull off a video game. In the streaming era of music especially, it's way more accessible than ever, so people's attention spans are all over the place. I feel like the only way that a rap related video game could work now is if they had a modern rapper fighting game similar to like the Def Jam games. But then you would have to do all these licensing and all these people would have to agree. I don't know. I don't think one artist could pull off an entire video game. I don't know. I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. 50 Cent Bulletproof, man. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. I love doing these retrospectives and review videos, so show some support if you do enjoy it, and I'll do even more. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.